I'll show you how to go from this to this with an oil catch can installation in reverse order. Stay tuned. So why in reverse order? Well, I've already installed it. So this is the intake going to the turbo. This is the tube coming out of the crankcase breather going into the catch can, the gases with the oil vapor, and this is the return coming in the intake going to the turbo. So I meant to install it to film it while I was doing it, but unfortunately there was a power cut, so I didn't really was able to film it while I was doing it. So I'll do it in reverse order. So I'll slacken everything, remove, so show a few bits and pieces here and there. So starting with the dismantling of the outlet with the cool gases hose. So this is just an elbow, 22mm elbow, so it basically clips like that, nothing really complicated. And this is just a fuel safe hose, 25mm diameter, goes like that. So next is to undo the intake. So really the intake is nothing complicated, so I've built this myself. It's not a kit. So basically I bought a silicone reducer hose. So this is 76mm, 45° angle going to 51mm internal diameter. So these are internal diameters. I have a T alloy piece, this like that, with a spout. So this is also external diameter 51mm. This is a joining fluoro lined silicone hose, and this is an alloy pipe that goes from here to about there. It's a 135° angle. This is a 45° straight hose, well, 45° an elbow silicone with a fluoro lined, so it's oil and fuel resistant. This is also fuel resistant. This is a normal silicone because it's just air coming in. And that's it. Basically I've cut these two shapes. These were much longer, so I've cut these two shapes, fitted them in, and it comes quite nice. So I'll undo those. So this is it, nothing really complicated. This is the spout with the alloy T-piece. That's how it comes inside. This is the spout that the cool gases come in, and here is the turbo side, how it goes in. So to look in the turbo a bit. There is not really much to see. There is a very slight oil, but that was from the previous installation. I haven't really wiped it. With the catch can, it hasn't really collected any more oil. So the next thing is this is the crucial design. This pipe going from the crankcase breather. So this is a Ford Focus part that fits in, and just a straight up to here, and just a straight piece. I have a description of that, and I have a part number in the video. So this, I made a mistake in my previous installation, so you can see my previous installation and how I what mistake I made. So this really has to go down, it has to be straight, so the gases, the all vapor gases don't really cool down and pull inside. So I had a kink that was going up, the catch can was much higher, this time is lower, so this really goes straight into the catch can. So this is 25 millimeter, and this is also the fourth part is also 25 millimeter, and it's a straight fit for the Peugeot or Citroen, the 1.6 HDI ones. So next is to remove that part. So removing this part is actually pretty difficult. This is a very hard hose. It's fairly thick and very hard hose, so it doesn't really flex too much. So and this is almost a perfect fit from there to there. So it requires some bending and some pulling out. So it's a bit difficult. I'll think about if I can buy some more flexible hoses. So this is the fourth part. I mean, it's pretty black, it can't quite be seen, but it comes up to here, and it's just a straight. It comes up to here, and it's just a straight piece that fits quite perfectly in there. So the catch can is really there is no bracket, so the bracket for the catch can, but I've really put a rivet in this plastic, so this bolt is held by a rivet inside, and then I've put a bolt in there and a small straight piece going down there, so it's held by this, so it kind of slips behind the box. So I'll undo those and take out the catch can, show you what kind of modifications I've done to this one. So the oil catch can, nothing really complicated. So let me first show you the end piece. So basically it's just a gas stop valve with a on and off. That's it, and I think it's 9mm or 8mm. Don't really quite remember. That's how it is held at the top. So I have several modifications. So this white bit is just a silicone, so it was touching the bonnet because it was way too high, so I put something to smooth it, so that's why it hasn't exploded, some white bits. So I've done two modifications to the catch can. So first of all, this plastic was fairly soft, and when the hose was the clamp, the Jubilee clip was clamping here, this really got squashed. I mean, you can see how uneven this is. So I've really put 18mm copper piece inside. So this really kind of, when this gets clipped, it really stays quite hard, so it doesn't really move a lot, so it doesn't really get squashed even more. Oh, it's a slight restriction, but it's not too bad. It's 18mm. Same thing here. I've put another copper piece here. The next thing is really this pressure regulating valve. So this is really the pressure regulating valve that they've put, and I this is not really necessary. So basically when the turbo draws air, so this is the outlet, so when the turbo really picks up, so when the turbo picks up and pulls air, so this will also suck air from here. So this is supposed to close, so I'll probably open it slightly. So this is what's inside. So when air starts getting sucked from this really gets close. So it closes like that, slightly like that, moves a bit and closes this kind of opening there. So it closes this valve, so it doesn't really draw so much air. So in other words, the oil from the crankcase doesn't get sucked. But the thing is that the PCV valve or CCV valve in the Peugeot, the 1.6 AGI engine, are exactly the same valve. I'll put a video how this operates, but it's exactly the same. So it closes the same. So the gases and oil doesn't get sucked from the crankcase from when the turbo pulls the air. So this is not entirely needed, and I've done a small modification to that one. And this is my modification. Is a cap that's a clear cap with a small rubber. So I'll open this. So this really, I found it, well, it's not entirely for that purpose. I found it from a drain cover. And this is just a gasket inside, so to be able to seal properly. So that's it. These are my two modifications. So now the opening is pretty good. I might eventually do a silicone, proper silicone cover here from silicone, because it will be easier, it will be nicer. But that's my modification to the oil catch can. Two additional things I wanted to mention. So these really create a slight restriction. So these are 22 millimeter copper pieces, but actually that is not that much of a problem. So this is the original intake. So I mean, if you look at the spout, so the spout is really 25 or 24 millimeter diameter internal, but what you can see inside, perhaps it's a bit black, so there is another 5 mil at least restriction there. So that's basically the same size. So it's not really that much restriction. So this is probably about 18 mil, probably a bit less the original one. So actually these 25 millimeter copper bits are not really that restrictive. So the second thing I wanted to say about the Provent pressure regulating valve, it's really the same as the Peugeot. So this is how it looks inside. Here is the spring, and this is this where the crankcase gases come out of, and inside it is just a cap, and inside really there is a small rubber membrane that just simply pushes up and down. So what happens is, normally if let's say this is open and the gases push outside and go into the intake, this really stays like that, so they push. But when there is a negative pressure here, so the turbo really draws air from out here, so you don't really want oil getting sucked out of the crankcase. So this really slightly closes like that and really restricts the flow. So I'll open this to show you what's inside. Let me be careful with the. So this is really just a rubber dimple here that closes on that hole here, and closes on that hole. So this hole really only connects with that one. There is nothing else here. It's it's there is no other connection. It's only from that hole. So I can put my finger so you can see what I mean. So there we go. So I cannot really push anywhere else. So this is the only opening. So this really it does the same function as the pressure regulating valves of the Provent. So this is exactly the same for turbo. This is the other valve is not needed. That's why I've put this plastic cap so it doesn't restrict the airflow. So underneath here the oil will drop, and there is a hole inside. So it's probably just so for the gases to go that side, and that's it. So this is the next thing. So here was the input for the air intake. This pipe was going inside here rather than down there. So I put a plastic, well, not plastic, just a plastic bag to stop any air drawn from here, from the warm air. So I have to remove. There's a Jubilee clip in there. It's nothing. It's just a clip. So this is the original air intake. So I've drilled a hole underneath, and this is actually the original pipe. But if you flip it around, I'll show you. If you flip it around, it perfectly fits in there, and it fits in there. So we have a small bracket that is from there. There is nothing really there. Blocks no cables block the air, and I have a small bracket just to hold it in place so it doesn't really move from there. So the next thing is to undo that one and show you how this piece, when you flip it, fits actually perfectly. So this is really the same pipe. It's just I've drilled a small threaded rivet in here, so I flipped it around, and I have another hole for another rivet to hold it on the other side, but it's not entirely needed at the moment. This is from the other side, the pipe, and this is how this pipe is supposed to be. So basically it's around here. Turn it around and goes inside there. So this is the actual intake. So if you flip it around, actually it's a perfect fit for this modification. This is really the hole that I've drilled inside. It's not really pretty, but it's fairly functional, and this is the rivet that I've drilled in there. There is not really any hoses to block the airflow, and it's basically the same setup. It just draws air from the hole, from the cold hole in there, and I've really put a silicone around this pipe because it was slightly rubbing, because this will have to go slightly on the right, so it's slightly rubbing. It's 1 or 2 millimeters down, slightly rubbing on the fuel filter there. But that's really my main install. It works pretty well, so I'll drive it for a few thousand miles and drain the oil catch can, see what has collected. Please subscribe, so I'll also do analysis on what has been collected, if it's oil, and see what actually is the stuff that comes out of the catch can, what is comprised of. So thank you very much indeed for watching.